Today I'll be joined by Executive Director of the Paradigm Research Group, Stephen Bassett, in my very first interview. Stephen is a legend in the UFO community and has been working toward government disclosure of the truth behind the UAP phenomenon for 28 years. Today we're going to discuss the most recent UAP hearing that took place in Congress this past Wednesday. Welcome everyone to UAP as NHI. Stephen founded PRG back in 1996 and has been dedicated to the cause ever since. He's also a founding member of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, a group committed to producing media and storytelling that endeavors to portray the phenomenon more accurately. Stephen is a political activist, registered lobbyist, and UAP disclosure advocate. Mr. Bassett has appeared on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and many others where he has given literally hundreds of interviews. He's also been featured in the Washington Post, New York Times, and several other journals. He's appeared in various documentary films as well, to include several episodes of Ancient Aliens. There's much more I left out because we need to dive in, but an extensive list of his efforts is detailed on his website at paradigmresearchgroup.org. I'll include a link in the show notes. In the meantime, let's welcome Stephen to the program.
It's okay.
All right, now it's on.
Hit the record.
Well, let's start over. It's finally recording.
No problem.
Well, hello, Stephen, and welcome to my modest little podcast.
My pleasure.
Many consider you a legend in this field, a boots-on-the-ground activist that's literally on the front lines. All of us in the UFO community are grateful you're on that wall. So, as Richard Dolan would say, please keep fighting the good fight.
That's good, but of course, in order to achieve legend status, you've got to live a long, long time. So thank you for reminding me of how old I am. Appreciate that. I've got colleagues that have been at it longer than I. There's been thousands of people that have pursued this issue in their own resources against the tide for 77 years, going all the way back to Keogh.
Wow.
And a lot of them are gone now, but hope those that are still here, hopefully will stay here because we're just about there. We're just about achieved what had to happen starting all the way back in Roswell.
I'm not too far behind. I'll be 52 in a couple weeks, so.
You're a child. Yeah.
Well,
I turned 78 in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
That's a bad number, man. It's like, you get the number, and it's like, one visit to the doctor, and the next day you're going around, putting your affairs together.
No. We all have to do it sometime.
That's cool. That's all right.
All right. Well, I'd like to start off with 5 bullet point questions, if that's okay.
Okay. I'm kind of a nonviolent guy, but let's go with that.
Okay. All right, so my first question is UFO, UAP, or either?
That's a very straightforward thing. UFO was the dominant term for 70 years. And that's not surprising. Something is going to be, this language is going to find a name for something. So that's not the problem. The problem is that the subject matter was a main target of derision and stigma by the government deliberately to create an intellectual ghetto for the issue and the people in it, thus to unempower them.
All right.
And that's what they do. And they do it in many ways. This is a lot of history behind this. It's very effective. Once you really stigmatize a race, a creed, a word, term, then all you have to do is mention it, and instantly it triggers the response you want. So UFO was the target for that. Alien, less so.
Well, I was going to say originally it was flying saucer, and then
yeah, but they that wasn't around long enough to get targeted.
True.
But
Right.
it's note that the on my wall here, I've got the front page of the July 8th, July 9th Roswell Daily Records, and they refer to saucer in both cases. But that had
Right.
to go. The saucer had to go. And so, in terms of any government statements or what have you, they did not use that because saucer says what it is. It was a saucer,
Right.
right? And everybody understands what that is. And so, there's a saucer. That's not good. So, unidentified flying object got put in play. It's the exact origin is not known. We think it may have originated with Ruppelt innocently as he was trying to do some research there in the very earliest days.
Right.
But UFO, unidentified flying object, that's it. It's unidentified. All that
Right.
says is it's flying. Saucer, too strong. So UFO became okay. Now that we've settled on what the term's going to be that we're going to use, because obviously unidentified flying object is too long. Gonna use the acronym. Now let's make that acronym the target for all the derision. Do you
Yeah.
believe in UFOs? Oh, that's silly. That's nonsense. Are you a UFO
Hmm.
person? No, really, you can't be, right? Uh, ufology. What the hell is that? Is that science or something?
Hmm.
And they laid it on thick, and it was
Sure.
extremely effective. And so, as we approached the point where we could really possibly wrap this up and this embargo, that term is a huge liability because you're trying to get high-end journalists, you're trying to get members of Congress and so forth, scientists to engage the issue. But
Yeah.
if when they ask you what's the issue, it's UFOs. Instantly, they turn around and walk away, and because it's stigmatized. That's what it is. You can't
Yeah.
unstigmatize something that's been demeaned for 60 years. So UAP was the preferred alternative, and we started bringing that into play little by little, increasing that about 7 years ago. And it means exactly the same thing.
Sure.
Unidentified air phenomena means exactly the same thing, but it doesn't have 70 years of stigma behind it.
Stigma. Yeah.
That's right.
All
That's the
right.
difference.
Well, then,
Oh, but one last thing.
yeah.
We've
Hmm.
made so much progress in the last few years that UFO came back. It was like it was a comeback, and now it is used freely without the stigma.
Yeah. It should be
And that shows you how powerful this issue is.
right. Should be interchangeable. I don't see any problem with either.
It is
Um,
almost interchangeable now, and I'm fine with that because, again, we've
sure.
moved on.
Yeah. NHI, alien, or either.
Um, Extraterrestrial is, to me, the most appropriate term. It
Okay.
hasn't been too beaten up. Obviously, Steven Spielberg's a very well-known and successful filmmaker, and so
Right.
he made E.T. the Extraterrestrial. So right away, it gave it some solid grounding there.
Isn't
Um,
he? Isn't he getting ready to come up with another uh, alien movie
yep,
or another Close Encounters type
26.
movie?
He
Okay.
announced it 2 years ahead of time, which means that it's a big
Okay.
deal.
Good.
You know, when you're Steven Spielberg, the only reason you would announce something 2 years ahead of time is because it's a big deal, and
Oh
you're
yeah.
planning on spending a lot of money.
All right. Now I apologize if I keep looking down, but I tried to get my screen as close to my camera as I could. All right. So
Mhm.
are NHI benevolent, malevolent, indifferent, or all of the above?
Yeah. To get back, but first, the last question: extraterrestrial
Yeah.
preferred term. Alien is uncomfortable for obvious reasons. Non-human biologics is the
Ooh.
term that is recent, and it was deliberately used in order to keep things kind of not too close to the to Occam's razor or whatever. In other words,
Right.
non-human biologics came in the door with a Grush mostly, and it didn't have a record. It didn't have any bad posts on Twitter or something, and so it's in play. But be sure that it is a careful, safer term to use in Congress and
Sure.
elsewhere than extraterrestrial. And so you don't hear the word extraterrestrial almost ever, but it did turn
Right.
up once in the hearing.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
NHI, go with that, but I'm putting all of my money on non-human from another star system and therefore extraterrestrial. Just because they're hanging out here at
Okay.
this point doesn't make them terrestrial. It means
Right.
it makes them extraterrestrial tourists.
I think that's
Now,
probably, yeah, I was going to say, I
go
think
ahead.
that's probably why they went with the NHI, because there's other interpretations and other theories that have come into play. Extraterrestrial, interdimensional, ultra terrestrial. So that's probably why they went with the NHI, just to make
Yeah.
everybody happy. But
Bill, it's not
I
that's
think
not the
that,
reason.
I was going to
That's
say,
not the
I
reason.
think alien fits regardless, because regardless of what origin they are, they're still going to be pretty much alien to us,
The
even if they're
problem
us
there,
from the future, you know.
yeah, the problem there is that alien is associated has a very substantial negative
Sure.
connotation. Okay,
Right.
so it's just too negative, and it conflates with other serious matters we're dealing with. So it's out
Especially
as far as that
especially in
NHI.
Hollywood. Right. I was
Yeah,
going to say it's
let me be
especially in Hollywood, which I know the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is trying to get that turned around.
well. I mean, we're trying to bring the film industry and the content industry together with the people in our field so that they can benefit from our work, and we
Right.
can get some money because all of us are broke, and make great content that the world is going to demand. So the Hollywood
Sure.
Disclosure Alliance is up to 180 members. It's a networking
Good.
nonprofit, and it's pretty good.
Good.
So your other question was their disposition. Not surprisingly, when you've got possibly as many as five or more separate or distinctly, not distinct, different um, technological sentient entities,
Right.
probably from 4, 5, 6, 7 planets. Their interaction with this is going to be complicated, to say the least.
Sure.
So it is very, very hard to just pin it all down. But we do have hundreds of thousands of contactee reports. All right. Uh, that there are some odd ones that maybe are, how would you say, not realistic. But when you've got that
Some of the
many, there's a substantial consensus in there. So we
right.
know
Some
a
of the
lot about ET contactees.
right.
All right. And that's one thing. And then of course we have their behavior vis-a-vis their craft and how they conduct themselves flying around here, there, and everything else. They've done they put crop circles down in the UK, which is not exactly violent. They turn our nuclear missiles off. So
Yes.
when you put it all that together, I've concluded this, that they do not have violent intentions toward us. There's a good reason to think they have beneficial intentions toward us.
Sure.
There's some very good evidence for that. It's also the case that they need something from us. The program of contact is clearly genetic. It's not hard you don't have to read many contactee reports to know that this is the core is genetics. Nothing surprising about that.
Right.
Um, and
Well,
it's
they'd be interested in our DNA regardless. I mean, they're still going to take an interest in the abductee phenomenon, the contactee phenomenon. They're definitely going to be interested in our DNA for sure.
well, that's my point. Yeah, I mean they are interested, but it's not just interested in it; they are working with it,
Right.
and
Maybe
that's a
they
big
need
deal.
it.
So why are they doing that? One of the absolute most significant questions that waits to be answered, which is only going to happen post disclosure, is why are they creating hybrids between humans and non-humans, and where are they? All right, so that's
Right.
a big deal. So
Sure.
controversial, so intense that it's not going to be brought up in this legislative process we see going forward.
No, and I think the biggest thing that I know the UFO community gets impatient and they want answers now, but what they got to realize is it's got to be one step at a time, and a lot of these hearings are to garner interest from the public. The ones that aren't familiar with the UFO topic so much.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's to garner support. And to bug the representatives. So I think the
absolutely.
UFO, yeah, they need to take a step back and realize that this is progress. This is one step at a time. We're getting there, and more people are coming around and accepting the phenomenon.
This has always been an issue, and I appreciate it. I understand, and I say the same thing all the time that
Right.
this process underway, the legislation, hearings, error, all of this is not for our benefit, meaning the
Exactly.
researchers, the activists, the people that have been involved in it. It is for the
Yeah.
general public's benefit,
Right.
and
Yeah,
the
we're already
government's benefit.
familiar.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you, once you see it that way, you can be a little more patient.
Right. It'll come. Eventually, it'll come. Something
Okay.
will come forward. But the second public UAP hearing took place this past Wednesday, and it was chaired by Representative Nancy Mace.
Right.
And, even though there were really no major revelations, what was your overall takeaway from it? I mean, what was the highlight of it?
Well, it's powerful for a different reason than the first one. And by the way, it's archived a lot of places, including the subcommittee website,
Right.
YouTube channel. So it's not hard to find it, and people are going to watch it. And in fact, I'm going to have to do that myself because as it happens, I hope this is not standard, but the microphone setup and everything was awful, and you could not hear.
Really?
They weren't getting close to the mic. The mic set
Oh,
wasn't loud enough. And so really it was very difficult to hear. And that's not good. So hopefully
no.
they'll fix that. But when you watch the videos of it, but from I think there was maybe one major feed and then people were taking that. They had
Yeah.
their own microphone setup. And so when you watch the video, it's great. So I'm going to actually be learning a lot of stuff about this late
Nice.
tonight when I watch
Yeah.
the actual video. Uh, and so to answer your question, the
Yeah, I've only
first,
listened to it too. I haven't watched it yet. I've only listened to it.
there are two interviews. I'm sorry. Two hearings took place in 1966, 1968. They weren't particularly significant. I don't think there was even a public audience. There were some witnesses. They were legitimate witnesses. They talked about various things. Some reports were submitted. And then
Right.
after the 68 hearing, they shut everything down. And then we did not get another hearing for 55 years.
Right.
Now, so while there were two hearings close together, about a year apart, 55, 6 years ago, now we've had two hearings on the other end. All right. But it's not going to stop with two hearings. We're in a different
No.
place. But the Grush hearing was about a single individual with a very important piece of information, which happened to be secondhand, but still very important piece of
Right.
information. It was it had made news. It got a lot of people's attention. Great. And so they brought him in. But it would have been very unwise to bring him in alone and have him sitting there by himself under
Oh
these
yeah.
circumstances. So they were able to, I think, quite easily get Ryan Graves and David Fravor, both Air Force retired air pilots who had some experiences themselves, to come in and be his wingmen. And they did answer a few questions. Many cases they just didn't have an answer because that's their experience is somewhat limited. But it
Right.
made it a much more comfortable hearing. And so it was powerful. It was about Grush. It was about non-human tech. It was a confirmation of non-human craft in our possession, meaning it was a confirmation of Roswell. It was a big deal, not only
Sure.
for the community, my work and my people, but also the general public. This hearing was different. What they did this time is brought in four individuals with long careers and accomplishments and high credibility across a multiple
Right.
platforms. Uh, and so they're testifying about aspects of this, and each one has substantial gravitas. Plus, some of the testimony is overlapping and reinforcing. So A is kind of reinforcing D, C is reinforcing B, and so forth. And so the cumulative effect of that was extremely powerful. And
Sure.
the kind of thing that's going to impact legislatures, editors of newspapers, producers, things like that, that is more likely to get their attention than a single individual who was told something quite extraordinary, who has an important background.
Yep.
So this was a very important hearing for moving forward. I was quite happy with it.
Yeah. I was going to say although the representatives knew they would get the patented "I can only answer that in a skiff" response
Mm-hmm.
from the witnesses,
Mm-hmm.
do you think they were nonetheless revealing so that the public could read between the lines or draw an
Of course.
inference from those
Of
answers?
course. Yeah, sure. This
Okay.
isn't always the case, but in this case, when you talk about the ET issue,
Yeah.
The default position is this: whatever, if the question has anything like a yes or no quality to it,
Yeah.
and the person says, I can't speak to this in a public session, that means yes.
What's that say? Right.
Yeah, that means yes.
Okay. Yeah, they did.
Do we have a non-human technology in facility somewhere? I'm
That can
sorry,
answer that.
Congresswoman, I cannot answer that. That's a
Right.
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, as far as retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet's testimony, the deleted email that he was referring to, that's another, I think that's another, yeah, it was an in-house email between all of the different commanders in the group.
Oh, yes,
And,
yes.
okay. Yeah, so what was, could you explain that? Well, there again, I think
So
that's another admittance to something's going on here. Why else would they delete the
it,
emails?
it is one of thousands and thousands of such incidences.
Sure. Yeah.
So in and of itself, it can mean nothing. But in the context of this issue and its history, in all of the instances where stuff had to be retracted, you never saw this, we weren't here,
Right.
on and on and on. It was kind of a cool thing to bring up. It's obviously not major,
Right.
but it made the point from his perspective as a retired rear admiral. He was trying to let you know that he knows that when something like that happens, it's not because they're they think the email system's being used too much. He knew
Sure.
probably even then that that something had to be retracted because it was dealing with something very, very significant. And of course, that
Okay.
was UFO, UAP. And he brought it up for that reason. But I assure you, there are thousands of people, active and retired military, who have experienced things
Oh
like
yeah.
that when they, at one time or another.
Sure. Now, journalist and I think he's a professor, Michael Schellenberger.
Hmm.
He was there to discuss the Immaculate Constellation. You know, watch out saying that. He said it was an unacknowledged DoD special access program to document
That's right.
UAP, which
Hmm.
includes, hundreds of clear videos, apparently. Could
Big
you,
deal.
I was going to say, have you read the 11 page, I'm going to highlight that, PDF that was provided by Nancy Mace? That
Has it made it to the web yet? Is it on the internet?
Yes, it is. It's on her.
Okay.
If you type it in, it'll come up. But apparently, it was missing a page from Jeremy Corbell. Steve Medina's
Okay.
gonna. Yeah, he was talking about it on his podcast today. I think you've got an interview with him next week. He's gonna elaborate on that. I think, but
I haven't
I'm not
haven't
sure.
read it yet.
Okay, yeah,
But I
it's
will,
pretty in
obviously.
depth. Absolutely, yeah. You definitely need to read that.
Now, the most important thing uh, one needs to know about that is that that's not the documents. And they made
Right.
this point,
That's
and that might
for
have
the
been missed.
public.
It is a
Right.
summary. Okay.
Exactly.
And somehow Gorbel got that summary, and he, from whatever source, and he provided it.
Yeah.
And you may ask, well, why that? Okay. Well, this person, whoever he is, almost certainly understood he was breaking the law if he brought anything about this forward.
Right.
Okay. But he chose to do it. That's why he's anonymous. But he also knew that conveying the substance of the documents, while probably illegal and therefore somewhat
Sure.
risky, actually giving somebody those documents takes it to another level of potential criminality. And so he wisely just provided a summary or something. And
Right.
that's okay. That's okay. But what's the most important thing here is this. This is the first time. I can't, I don't think that um, I don't think that Grush actually named the program that the non-human tech and non-human bodies were in that he was referring to. I don't think he did. And
No,
I don't
he didn't.
know if he actually used the unacknowledged, but I can easily check on that. But I know this was the first time ever that
It was
an
named.
unacknowledged special access program uh, was uh, given out
Named.
under oath.
Right.
No,
Right.
I don't think it's ever happened. In
I
fact,
don't either.
it doesn't happen. Now they turn up here and there. This source is that website and so forth.
Right.
But there's no way to know if that's really the name. So, but some of them probably are actually unacknowledged
Sure.
programs, but this is the first time under oath. And for the DoD, this is a significant red line that's been crossed, and they're not happy about it. And obviously, Nancy Mace learned about that.
Now, yeah, I was going to say if they admit to it, if they admit that that is, an actual program, which they can't really do that either. I mean, they're kind of in a catch-22 there. So if the whistleblower comes forward, I mean, he's probably going to face some kind of charges, I'm sure.
Don't know, but they've
Yeah,
already admitted it, right?
right.
The moment that they went to Mace, either directly or through intermediaries, and said, we
Oh, they
don't
did.
want that name used and we don't want that witness forward, they admitted that that program is
Oh,
real.
okay.
And almost certainly that's the name.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that. I didn't realize. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think of former NASA Associate Administrator Michael Gold's testimony? I think he asked if it would be feasible if we could come up with an AI algorithm that would collate, organize, and maybe highlight specific cases that stand out in the various government documents and the NASA files relating to the topic. I
That's
think that
fine.
would be, yeah,
But I'm not interested.
no,
Uh, well, in other words, this is one of 1,000 things that would make it be a good idea after disclosure.
right,
But we don't need to go do programs like that to get the disclosure, and
right,
spending money and time on such programs without getting disclosure is exactly what the government wants. The
yeah,
Department of Defense, or the anti-disclosure segment, Cordier within the Department of Defense, would like us to format, organize, spend money for another 100 years, as long as we don't press them about the
right,
core reality. And so, but it's a nice suggestion. Let's look at it again post disclosure.
right. Well, I guess I'm talking in terms of getting the public interest, getting, the public, because they would have something that they could actually access and, the information is already there. They could, would generate interest, but yeah, you're probably right.
Well,
I see what you're saying
Mike
there.
is new to the game. There is enough stuff you can access online right now to keep you busy for
Sure.
4 or 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Most
And then
Americans don't
some.
know that there's a substantial trove of FBI UAP related documents that were released and are archived, CIA documents that are up there if you
That's
go look
there.
for them.
That's
Absolutely, it's
available.
already
Yeah.
online. And
Right.
well, how many sightings have been reviewed and studied? I don't know, something like 200,000. So
It's
I
insane.
appreciate Mike's trying to be, productive and whatever. Somebody else
Right.
mentioned something about it'd be great if that massive NASA database could be brought into play, which is great. It's a statement you want to make. It's appropriate. Okay.
Yeah.
But is that a statement that services the disclosure process? No.
No.
And we
Fair
don't have
enough.
time. We need to get disclosure in the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
That program will take years.
Sure. Now I'm hearing rumors of another upcoming UAP hearing, this time in the Senate. Any
Yeah, it
truth
looks
to
like
that or possible timeline?
Gillibrand has confirmed that she's going to do something on
Okay.
the 19th. Okay.
Oh, on the
She's
19th.
done
Okay.
she's done a couple of briefings, um, but they were just briefings. One person came in, talked to her, Joni
Right.
Ernst, whatever. Those are not hearings. So at this point, it may just be that. However, the task at hand for the disclosure activist movement right now, and I'm happy to elaborate, is uh, it's in the best interest of everybody, Dems, Republicans, Americans, and non-Americans.
Right.
If we to get this truth embargo ended during this transition period, get it done, blow it up, so that the current president, it'll be Biden, comes forward, confirms the ET president. We've been targeting for that for a year. That was the game plan. I think the Senate would eventually bring in the major witnesses to just end this thing, but international events and so forth intervened, and the politics intervened, and so it got pushed to the
Yeah.
point where it couldn't be done this year or before the election. Well, the election's over, and so now
Right.
things are calming down. We need to have that hearing, and we need to get disclosure from. It'll be Biden. Why? Because if we do, say a week, say the hearing that she's talking about is not one day, the 19th, but it's 5 days, ending around, I don't know, December 22 or 3, whatever the hell. And those 20 witnesses blow the truth embargo out of the water. Biden comes forward at the end of the year, end of December rather, and confirms the ET presence. And that's disclosure, capital D. The entire world, well, every head of state of note will follow suit within days, all right? And that the whole world moves into the post-disclosure world and will be in the post-disclosure world for the next month, okay? So what that means is when the new president comes in, most of the wild response and most of the excitement and energy is going to start settling down. All the other heads of state will have already joined in. It'll be a worldwide understanding. And so the new president will then won't have that hanging over their administration as they try to deal with a huge range of really bad problems. This will not be one of them. They'll be able to engage the post-disclosure world, be able to address those things that are appropriate to deal with now that everybody on the planet knows we're not alone. That is responsible, orderly, and definitely in the interest of the incoming president. That's what we're going to be working on now. And I'm going to try to get to Senator Gillibrand. I have some colleagues going to do the same. Doesn't mean we will, but that's the game. And if it doesn't happen, then I believe, based upon other things that I have been following, that it will then fall into the hands of the next president. And I think he's more than capable, with or without a hearing, of ending the truth embargo for 60 days.
Yeah, so as far as, now I know you've said that disclosure is different from contact. You don't think contact is a form of disclosure if, if they landed in Central Park and made their presence known, consider that disclosure? I know you've said that it's different. What do you mean by that?
Maybe even if they landed in Central Park and the White House lawn, that's not disclosure. That's a non-human landing. However, that would almost certainly result in the president of the United States fairly quickly confirming that we're not alone. That's disclosure.
Follow up with.
Okay, with a capital D. Right. But that's not going to happen. What's going to happen?
If it was obfuscated, if they tried to go in and clean it up, even if there's videos or what have you, they're going to try to cover it up regardless. There's going to be an attempt, as far as contact for the president to come out and then say, and then disclose. I don't think. I think we need the scientific community behind that. I think we need the president behind that as well.
Well, that's what this is all about. The scientific
community. Right. I guess I'm trying to distinguish between what you mean by contact and disclosure. I mean,
I'm about to get there, my friend.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we're not going to have a White House lawn event or anything like that, though they are pretty active. Sure. We're going to get disclosure. Once we get disclosure, I believe that as part of the extraterrestrial agenda, open contact follows. And the question is how long? And the only way I can look at that and come up with some sort of reasonable date or number is that I try to imagine how long would it take for 8 billion people, 200 countries, to get up to speed, comfortable with, informed. What would be the learning curve for the world in the post-disclosure world? Right. And I factoring in the incredible power that we have in terms of social media, internet, and everything else, self-teaching, all of that. And I went with 2 years. In 2 years, humans will probably normalize the thing. Many people will be bored. They don't want to even hear about it anymore. There'll be a very substantial knowledge base worldwide. And at that point, open contact would be almost anticlimactic. And since that's, I think, what the ETs are looking for, I go 2 years. So if we get disclosure at the end of this year, that puts it at the end of 2026. Open contact is when extraterrestrials are engaging the authorities, right? And by that, I don't mean state governments, but almost certainly national governments.
Sure.
And whatever is transpiring between the extraterrestrials and our authorities is actually being conveyed to us, whatever form it's taking. Does that mean they're sitting down at a table and talking? I have no idea. Does it mean that they're sending emails back and forth? Who knows? Is it telepathic? I don't know. It doesn't matter. if there is communication and it is acknowledged that that is happening, and then the citizens of nations are being told what that is open contact.
Right.
And that is where this has always been heading since the 47 crash at Roswell.
Now, if there are several different races of beings, regardless of where they're from, and some have different motives or different agendas, I should say, than others, then it might not necessarily have to be, them working with them. They might just come out and say, hey, we're going to make ourselves known to these people, whether the president or the governments of the world want it or not. I mean,
well, they've always had that ability, and they've chosen not to.
Right.
In fact, that there's multiple entities is notable. And so maybe two of the entities will decide it's time for open contact, and the other three will say, that's fine, we're not ready yet, you go ahead. As long as one of these species, or whatever term makes sense,
Right.
gets into open contact with our authorities and we're so informed, that is open contact. And that is the next paradigm shift. It's the next major event. My inclination is that my feeling is that the disclosure event will be the most powerful event in human history, and open contact will not quite be that powerful. It will be pretty powerful. It will be significant. It will have major impact, but it won't be as strong as the disclosure event for obvious reasons. I mean, we will have a couple of years waiting and learning and everything else, and so when it happens, it's going to be less, and that's good. That's the way it should be, and I think that's why the ETs, by and large, are doing it this way. They don't seem to want to overly stimulate and or make us that uncomfortable. At least it seems that way. But again, until we talk to them, we don't know for sure.
Sure. All right, Stephen, I'd like to take a quick intermission from the UAP topic and ask you 3 brief off-topic questions, if that's okay.
Okay. Very good.
First is, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Vallejo, California, at the Naval Air Station Hospital. I was a military brat, so I grew up all over the place. 2.5 years here, and then moving on endlessly while my father was in the Navy. And he did not. He retired. I recall he retired the year that I left for college.
Okay.
So it's that kind of lifestyle. It's I would not want to do it again. It's not easy. But it is families of military who serve. That is a price, and it is a price. It is a price that they pay. They give up a lot by being a family. Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if you've already stated this somewhere, but what is your favorite NFL and or college football teams?
Right now, well, it's tough. It's tough. For most of the last 24 years.
Okay.
The Washington football team has been a catastrophe.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And I think that has accounted for a significant percentage of the disruption and upheaval in Washington, D.C. Everybody's miserable about this football team. And so in general, it just, takes the edge off of everything. And so there are political implications here that have not yet been measured. So forget that. However, I was very comfortable in making the Kansas City Chiefs my favorite team because they're just really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And Mahomes is just a genius. So that was my team. However, the infamous owner of the Washington football team, now called the Commanders, finally sold out. They practically held a parade to show him out of town. And he's taken a lot of flack. However, he also left town with $6 billion. So the new team, in a very short amount of time, this team has become great and is going to make the playoffs. And one of the greatest plays of all time just happened 2 games ago when Daniels threw a Hail Mary and won the game.
Yeah.
And when the Hail Mary was finally caught in the end zone, it was 13 seconds after the gun had gone off, right? That's how cool that play was. And so now I have co-favorites. I've got the Commanders and I've got the Chiefs. And so if the Commanders end up playing the Chiefs, it's going to be a tough one for me. But hey, 2 favorites are better than 1.
I used to follow NFL. I was the Cincinnati Bengals fan, but I haven't for years. Of course, I'm a big Ohio State fan because that's where I live. But you don't have a college team that you follow? You follow college sports at all?
And my college experience was uh, almost at the level of a war crime. And so, my interest in college football just
Yeah.
barely survived it. When I was younger, I used to watch it at Thanksgiving. However, I will say this.
Hmm.
I chose the wrong college. I chose Georgia Tech. Huge mistake. But when I went there,
Yeah.
they were a very good team. And that was one of the reasons I think I chose it. Yeah, it's like you can't just shut that out. It's like, it's a
Right.
great football team, and I don't know which way to go. Let me pick the school with a better football team. Whatever. So
Mhm.
I go there, and in that you were called a rat when you were a freshman at Georgia Tech. You're a rat, and they have a
Right.
rat hat, right? Yeah, they have this hat called the rat hat, and you're supposed to put the scores of the games on, and then
Yeah.
we would go to the game early, all sit in the same place with our little rat hats and root for the team. Now, I'd never done anything like that, so it was pretty cool.
Hmm.
And then what happened is that Georgia Tech won its first 9 games. It was 9-0 and ranked sixth in the country. And somehow, because I was very young and immature,
What
I
year was that?
somehow 1964. So
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
incorporated it into my being. It's like my team is 9-0. I feel great. Life is good. This is
Yeah,
wonderful. We're going to go 10-0.
it is.
So that was a wonderful 10 weeks or so. And then, as is custom, their last game was against the University of Georgia at Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what? Georgia beat us,
Georgia.
and it took me a
Yeah,
while to get over that.
I'm
And
sure.
after that, there was only one other football thing that was memorable to me personally in college, right? Because I didn't play contact sports. No way I'm going to do that. Uh, I leave that for others. But
Mhm.
in the second year, we were playing. We're not too bad, but one of the teams that we played, because we weren't in the SEC, we were independent. One of the teams we played was Alabama.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And while we didn't like Georgia because there was this rivalry, we hated Alabama. I mean, the Georgia Tech students and the team hated Alabama. I mean, it was visceral. And so when that game is going to be a big game, huge game, obviously,
Sure.
right? And it was a home game in Atlanta. And so we all get to the stadium early. We're all sitting there, waiting, see what's going to go on. And the Alabama team arrives, which, that's what happens. And they arrived. And normally you go into the locker rooms. They get off the buses, go in the locker rooms and do what they got to do. But good old Bear Bryant had another idea. And so what they did, their travel clothes were nice slacks and a bright red sport coat. And so all of a sudden, over on the far right side, entering the field, you know how you got your track around the field, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Comes this fellow in a bright sport coat, red sport coat, black slacks, and so forth. And then after that comes the entire Alabama football team. And so they simply walked around the entire outside of the field in front of all of the Georgia Tech fans, right? All the
Hmm.
way down and then went back into the locker room. Well, people went nuts. I mean, they were absolutely going crazy. And they got the TV people down there and the crowd is screaming, I'm going to clean up a little bit. F Alabama, F Alabama, F Alabama. I mean, they were just going, and the guys are going around with their microphones and what the hell to do. It was impressive. Okay, so now we are fired up and the game gets underway. All right. And so, amazingly enough, at the end of the half, we were ahead because Alabama's a great team. Great team, right?
Always
We
have
were
been.
ahead. And we were thinking, wow, this would be incredible.
Got a
Except
chance.
for one thing.
Mhm.
There was a player who was essentially on injured reserve, I guess you could say, or
Mhm.
basically wasn't playing. But they were behind at the end of the half, so they decided they would let this person play the second half. And so when the team came out for the second half, the Alabama team was accompanied by Joe Namath.
Oh,
And Joe
oh
Namath
boy.
proceeded to just absolutely ba-bing, ba-bang,
After
ba-boom,
another.
ba-bang,
Yeah.
and simply cut us up
And
like
that was
lettuce.
that.
And it was a tragic day. It was a terribly tragic day.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. One final personal question. When
hmm
you're not doing work for the cause, what do you like to do for fun or as a hobby?
I have no hobbies,
No?
no
None?
family, no pets. I turned myself over to this issue 28 years ago, and this is all that I do.
All in.
Period. Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
Wow.
I have Netflix. I have streaming platforms.
Sure.
I got I can look at Facebook videos,
Oh, yeah.
whatever. But in terms of organized play, vacations, things like that, social life,
Right. No. Okay.
distraction.
Cool. Sure. And that's probably why you're where you're at now and why you're committed to the cause and you've been doing it so long and why so many people look up to you. All right.
Okay, you say so. I'll take that. But I don't think it necessarily makes me a more likable person, but it makes it easier for me to do this. Let's just say.
Oh, sure. All right. Now we hear talk of legacy programs from time to time on
Mhm.
other podcasts. What
Yeah.
exactly is a legacy program for those unaware?
It's another example of trying to find language that will help people to understand. You got to label
Right.
things, you got to name for things. And I don't know about the start of this. I don't know the origin, haven't looked it up. But at some point, somebody somebody had to go first, right?
Right.
Referred to the ongoing established programs that go all the way back to the 40s, where they're dealing with crash vehicles and other evidence that they bring in, and there were a number of crashes and so forth, and they started building the special access programs that were going to deal with all this, fully classified. A lot of them almost certainly operating underground, very convenient. And the programs that go back or origined back there that have been around a long time, classified, super classified, whatever. Someone at some point just said those are the legacy programs, as
Legacy.
opposed to something that they're dealing with now. Like something is happening now, and they're having to deal with it. Maybe they set something up, but that's not a legacy program.
Okay. Now, can you explain what you mean by truth embargo and also describe what kind of organization might be behind it?
Yes, truth and bar. There's a few because I haven't written a book. You're more likely to get tied to language, quotes, and things if you write books. But I just don't have the patience for it. And my patience is not getting better with time. But one of the things I did as an activist uh, is try to shape the language. And this is not special to me. Language is extremely important to activist movements. You need the right language, the right names, the right phrases to connect and get
Right.
messages across. And if you pick the wrong one, something that's going to get used over and over and over and over and over again, it's just like getting hammered, pushed back. You don't want that. And so bad language is not good for activism. So, and I understood that, but when I first got involved in mid 1996, I didn't know much, and it took a while. But by about 1998, 99, I began to get my legs underneath me and realizing, okay, what do we need to do? What's this? What's that? And I looked at the language and I said, all right, we got to fix the problem here. And there are 3 or 4 serious language problems that were not helping this issue. One of them was UFO, without question, and I knew that. But at the time, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the idea of trying to move away from UFO, it wasn't going to fly. So kind of let that one go. All right.
Yeah.
The other one was, and that's kind of a phenomenology issue. That's a nuts and bolts issue. What are the UFOs? But in the activist realm, in the political realm, you had a couple of phrases that were a problem, and one of them was UFO cover up. UFO cover up was used constantly. You refer to it all the time. It's a bad
Mhm.
phrase. It's
Right.
not helpful at all. We need to fix that phrase. Now, why? Well, first of all, it had UFO in it, so right away, before you get to cover up, you're already in trouble.
Stigma already.
Then you had to cover up. UFO cover up was supposed to be referring to the government's policy and not telling us the truth. In a very simple, basic way, that's what it was, right?
Sure.
And of course, it refers to everything they were, quote, covering up, which is massive. I get it. It kind of made the point, but it's not helpful. UFO is a problem, but cover up is as well, because thousands of people have been involved in that cover up, working for the national security structures, the DoD, military services. It has been a
Right.
national security matter since 1947. So it's national security. It's in service to our defense, and they're doing the job. It's not a cover-up. You do not cover up legal activities. You don't cover up a birthday party you're planning to surprise your sister. You cover up legal activities. And so when you say UFO cover-up, you are saying that all the people in the government servicing those processes, those legacy programs, are criminals. And that's not how you make friends. So that had to go. And so I said, well, what is it? It's not a cover-up. It's an embargo. All right? They've embargoed the truth, which is much more accurate. Like, we don't cover up Cuba. We embargoed Cuba, right? We didn't lie about Cuba not existing. I mean, there's no Cuba. We're covering it up. We didn't throw a blanket over. We just say, look, yeah, there's a Cuba. You can't go there. We embargoed it. That's what this is. It was an embargo of what? The truth. So I came up with truth embargo, and it is in play. I'm very proud of myself. The other term was the issue of what word do we come up with to describe why we're doing what we're doing? Why are we putting all this time in? I mean, is it to just get peace on earth or get more truth or whatever? That's fine, but those kind of nebulous aspirations don't really go anywhere. I mean, we've been seeking peace on earth for an awful long time. We ain't got it. So what's the prize? We know what the prize was for the women's suffrage movement. It was crystal clear, wasn't it? Right to vote. We know what the civil rights major prize, initial prize, was the Civil Rights Act. That was clear. What was the prize of the Indian independence movement? It was simple. The British turned over the rule of the country. It was completely unambiguous. And of course, people went to enormous lengths and made great sacrifices to achieve that prize. What was the prize regarding the truth embargo? There wasn't one. The whole thing for 70 years was basically about researching and getting more and more proof and piling proof on top of proof on top of proof until somehow the government would finally just go, oh my God, it's so proved, I guess we need to talk about it, which wasn't working. And well, let me put it this way, it wasn't working well enough. And so I said, what's the prize? The prize is disclosure with a capital D. Now, disclosure, it had been used. I mean, it's a term attached to the process. It's a logical basic noun with a small d that applies to a lot of things. And it's been used with respect to getting information out all the way back, right? But that's not the term I came up with. It was capital D disclosure, proper noun. The name of an event that need to happen, like the Civil Rights Act, okay? That's an event that needed to happen, and it did. What's the event? It's disclosure. What's disclosure with a capital D? It is specifically defined as and only as, because it's my definition. If somebody wants to define me else, that's fine with them, but it's not going to ever be my definition. Disclosure is the formal confirmation by the heads of state of nations of an extraterrestrial, non-human presence engaging the human race. Bingo.
Now, what if it wasn't the U.S. president that came out and,
heads of state, head of state. Could be President Putin, Prime Minister of the UK. It could be Xi Jinping. Hell,
so
whatever. Any head of state that comes forward and confirms the ET presence, that is disclosure.
Okay.
Everything else that happens is in the post-disclosure world.
Gotcha. Now then, what if our president turns around and if it's ping and our president turns around and says, no, they don't know what they're talking about, or that's propaganda? I mean, then are we back to square one, or?
No, disclosure has still happened, but our president will have made a very colossal blunder.
Okay, especially if they present proof, and especially scientific proof that can be tested in a lab, metamaterials.
Well, not all proof is scientific, but I assure you that any head of state that comes forward to confirm the ET presence will be able to provide all the proof you could possibly want.
Oh, I'm with you on that last statement you just said. Not all proof is scientific. I'm
Sure.
with you there. Now, I know you've suggested that disagreements and infighting in the UFO community are inevitable, and that it's just the nature of the environment because of the truth embargo.
Well, because of activism always has that. It's the nature of the process and everything else.
But I mean, do you think the community might accomplish more working together and be better served to get along despite those differences? You know,
Obviously, the more people get along, the better things will go. But
right.
there's no way you get 100% of that. And you don't have to all get along to succeed.
Sure.
You need a sufficient number of people cooperating and working in concert to get the job done. If those that aren't in concert, okay, that can be an issue. It can be a big issue, a small issue,
Right.
but it's simply when you're dealing with complex issues of a great import to individuals or many individuals, you do not get complete consensus.
Sure.
It's impossible. It is the very nature
Right.
of what it is to be human. And there's no activist movement that I'm aware of that even the suffrage movement, when the suffrage movement was trying to get women the right to vote, a lot of people may not be aware. A very substantial number of women in the country, a very large number of women in the country didn't want
Didn't
it.
want it.
They were
Right.
not happy at all. And so they were not on board. They were fighting against it. So,
Yeah.
hey, what can I say?
Okay. Fair enough. And I know you've answered this on many occasions, but I have a follow up. And you've already said you've already explained capital D disclosure. Now, little
Mhm.
d disclosure, I think I've heard you say that before as well. And that's basically just case by case. You know, anytime somebody takes a video and it's established or it's verified,
Yeah,
to
it's
be
everything.
anomalous.
It's everything that's involved in bringing things out. It's
Everything else.
basically
Okay.
describes all information transfer, knowledge accumulation on the
Right.
subject, and every subject has disclosure. That there was a disclosure process that led up to quantum physics. Now they didn't call it that, uh,
Right.
but it's the same thing. Disclosure tends to more be used when you're talking about political things. Um, and so forth. But small d disclosure has been going on forever. It will continue on after capital D disclosure takes place. In fact, it will be more vigorous.
Right.
And of course, we will be in a disclosure modality forever because we're never going to know everything about this world, and we're never going to be able to get out everything we know about this world. So disclosure is going to be around a long time. Capital disclosure, as it applies to the ET issue, will happen only once.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I predominantly focus on probabilities rather than claims
Hmm.
because I think it's a good neutral starting point for open dialogue. But
I
there's
agree.
always the possibility that disclosure could come from the scientific arena first, which would naturally spill over to the political side once the president is forced to weigh in on that established evidence. Say it's DNA evidence, the Nazca mummies, they do tests and they find that there's something to it, or metamaterials. But
When you
the
say
president,
disclosure can come first, what disclosure are you referring to?
as far as well, I mean, as far as disclosure by the scientific community, like evidence that comes forward, the president is
Yeah.
then going to be. You're saying there's a difference between the disclosure and evidence as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
look, no. I'm saying that everything involving bringing information out on this issue of any type is disclosure small d.
okay,
And all of that is necessary and important, but not, it's more than just that, to
right,
getting to a place where the president of the United States can, or whatever country we're talking about, can come out and say, look, we're not alone, and it would be
right.
appropriate and handled well.
Okay, so
So it's really kind of that simple. Uh, People try to make it more complex than it is, but science. There has been scientific aspects of this phenomena coming forward for decades. So
sure,
as science has been involved, media has been involved, citizen testimony has been involved. Uh, the amount of total accumulation of information on this issue is enough to prove it 100 times over. The only reason that we're not in the post-disclosure world decades ago is the United States government decided to spend billions of dollars as adjunct to their vast national security and intelligence operations and
right.
propaganda operations to embargo this issue for national security reasons. It's one of the most extraordinary things any country has ever done. It's really remarkable. If somebody gave me $10 million tomorrow, I would immediately start pulling together the talent to make the documentary Truth Embargo that actually explains this, though it would be tough because a lot of it is not accessible yet. But once you get going, but this story will be told many times. And of course, later on, when there's more knowledge, it will be even more robust. But it's going to get a treatment like the Civil War got the treatment from Ken Burns. We need the Ken Burns version of the disclosure of the Truth Embargo. It is absolutely amazing. And I'll repeat this. The United States government, operating within a well-defined representative democracy, all right, with strong constitution, with the public having substantial rights, including, of course, the freedom of speech, without really violating those fundamentals, okay, but was certainly breaking some odd laws and pushing the moral boundaries a little bit. But the U.S. government would manage to maintain an embargo on the truth about something that was flying overhead all the time, being seen all the time, was being written about by journalists, was being studied. Organizations were being formed to deal with it. The number of sightings in the millions. They were able, in spite of all of that, successfully able to go 77 years without having to confirm that truth. Now, if we'd had a dictatorship, there would have been no problem, right? You know, this is not going to be told. Anybody that tells it, we're going to kill you. And we're probably going to kill your family, too. We'll kill the dogs and the cats. We'll kill everything. We'll wipe you from history. Right? People will be lined up behind buildings, shot in the back of the head. Let me tell you, when you can do that, you can keep secrets. You can keep control. We didn't do that. Very few people were killed. I think there were a few. But using every skill, every trick in the book, and taking advantage of rather extraordinary historical realities, it played in their favor. And they were able to do it, not just for 77 years, but as the fundamentals of media and journalism literally changed dramatically and grew and expanded until you had an internet and a social media complex, and you practically had a global neurosphere where people could talk to anybody at any time, where influencers had 100 million followers. And still, they have not been forced to confirm the extraterrestrial presence. No nation, no empire has even come close to that. It is one of the most remarkable accomplishments. I give them, I have respect, right? I respect it. Should they have done it? No. Should they have kept it this long? No. Was it a mistake? Yes. Has it done damage? Yes. But you got to admire it. It's unbelievable. But it's about, thank God, to end.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's feasible as much resources as they have. It's not surprising that they have kept it secret this long, you know.
Well, again, again, they have resources, but how was it that you know, I have logged I have triaged 16,000 articles from media coverage, English language press, no foreign language press, going back to 1947. Obviously, most of them are more recent, but whatever. That's 16,000 articles. Triaged out of maybe 35, 40,000 other media, which are just not substantive. It's trivial venues, silly articles, whatever. So I triaged 16 out of 30, 35,000 articles. That's just English language press, okay? The ones that I have access to. The total number of journalistic articles that have been written about this subject going back to 47, all languages, is probably in the range of 500,000. That's 500,000 news articles talking about that stuff up there.
Right.
And yet every nation in the world has been able to go, all with spite of all that, has been able to successfully get away with not confirming formally that they're here.
I know.
Again, you really, if you think about it long enough, it starts to grow and you begin to realize, how did they do this? How did they get the cooperation? I mean, the Soviet Union was not far.
Wow.
If the Soviet Union didn't want you to get into UFOs, you didn't get into UFOs. If you were a journalist and you wrote about it, you end up in Siberia. I mean, that was not
Right.
that difficult. For the United States to do it is simply astounding, and that doc needs to be made someday.
Well, and all the countries that the United States has influence over or, works in tandem with,
Yes.
they're gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna go along with whatever the United States says, and the same with, Russia and their influence, and so it's gonna be hard to get even a smaller country to come forward, you know.
Well, they're not going to come forward, and one of the reasons that made this possible, which is one of many reasons, is that the truth embargo begins in 40. Well, it begins basically in 47, formalized in 52, 53.
Yeah.
But again, it's after World War II is over. We have been a major component in defeating the Axis powers. All right, along with the Soviet Union, of course, and the UK. Soviet Union, things didn't work out well after the war. The point is that not only were we the major power that saved the democratic world, whatever the hell you want to call it, from massive fascism, we were also at that point the most powerful nation in the world and the most powerful economy in the world. And so all these other nations basically they took the position, the leadership is that, look, this is a big deal. We know it. And
Mhm.
it's going to have to be dealt with and studied and brought forward. We're going to let you do that. We're not going to get in your way. We're not going to muck up whatever your plan is. We're not going to undermine it.
Right.
We owe you. Okay, we owe you big time. And as the Cold
Exactly.
War got worse and the nuclear threat got worse, the motivation to screw around with the U.S. agenda was less and less. And
Yeah.
then the other half was that obviously the Soviet Union and China could give a damn about how well we did in World War II. And so why didn't they do it? And the reason is pretty straightforward. They're autocratic states, somewhere between an autocracy and a dictatorship. They're ideological states. And their existence is based upon complete and undying fealty to the great leader and or the ideology. And introducing a massive paradigm shifting piece of information that, wait a minute, this is a massive galaxy. There's all this stuff out there. They're visiting us, distracts the people from the focus that they want. And
Right.
so they simply do not want to do that. And they haven't done that. Now, that doesn't mean they couldn't do it tomorrow. But with the cooperation with China not wanting to do it in the Soviet Union and all of the democracies not wanting to do it and the very poor countries, they didn't know anything and they're even less inclined to piss off any major powers. This fundamental basis for maintaining the truth embargo was there. But believe me, it took a hell.
How how does China treat the UFO UAP topic?
Very generous with people who want to do the research.
I
Don't
thought
have a
so.
problem.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah, I think
interesting.
a certain amount of activism, I think, is no problem. That
Yeah.
may have fluctuated a little bit, but let me just say that if you wanted to do UFO research, most of the last 20, 30 years or whatever, probably okay. If you wanted to do Falun Gong, not okay. So
Right.
pick your
Yeah.
poison, right? But
Certain topics.
China's
Right.
been okay. And same thing in Russia and the Soviet Union. Being a UFO person, a UFO researcher, whatever, was not a particularly serious problem for you. Now, if you want to be a disclosure activist, you don't hear about too many disclosure activists in China or Russia because that's not UFOs and science. That's politics, and that's a
Right.
different matter. And so someone like me would not do well in China or Russia.
Okay. Yeah. And also, they're really interested in our nuclear capabilities. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd seen a video and it seemed authentic, but you never know. But the Fukushima after the I think there was a tsunami and the Fukushima meltdown of the
Uh-huh.
plant. There were these.
Uh-huh.
They just they were just right there. A whole fleet of them. It seemed like, and it looked like it was just somebody there, filming the meltdown of the plant, from a distance. But yeah, I just see there's many instances. I mean, it's not just that. There's there the ICBM that I guess there was I think it was Robert. No, it wasn't. No, Robert Jacobs.
Robert
Yeah,
Salas. Yeah. Look, the when things are seen at certain events like Fukushima, that's notable, but you have no idea what's going on, and so
right.
it's not particularly significant to me. However, we have firsthand witnesses to them shutting down our nuclear weapons at ICBM sites a number of times, and witnesses that have come forward that has happened in the Soviet Union. I've heard recently that also China, but I don't know much about that. So one thing we do know with absolute certainty is that they have turned off our weapons and we have turned them back on. And so right there, that's all you
Yeah,
need to know about their interest in nuclear weapons.
yeah, there was like 10 different um, missiles that they shut down in that silo.
30. In the
30.
period of about a year and a half, they shut down 30 missiles.
Okay. But yeah, it was Dr. Robert Jacobs, I think. He witnessed a video of a UAP firing a laser at a dummy warhead. And
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. And he's
A
seen
very
it. And
important event.
yeah, he just came for. I think I just
Very
seen him in another interview recently. No, it was a document, the Netflix documentary that just came out. Have you seen that yet?
these docs. Oh, these docs are so important. They keep these issues alive. But Jacobs's event is so important
He got
because
he got emotional during this most recent interview.
a lot of them do. I mean, they've been trying for 30 some years to get this testimony before Congress, and
Yeah,
they're shut out. You might say, well, why are they shut out and Grush isn't? That's because these gentlemen. Let's talk about the shutdowns. The SAC base officers that were present when these missiles were shut down, who later came forward eventually, because frankly they just felt that this had to be told, and they were led. The first man to come forward was Bob Salas, and then the rest eventually came forward with his assistance, and also based on research by Robert Hastings. Um, these uh, these are men. They were in their late 20s, officers, and who were they? These were people that were interviewed, and after sufficient vetting, were said, okay, you're going to be serving as a silo commander at our ICBM base. And you're going to be down in that silo with another individual. And the way this is going to work, if certain codes come in from the president through the right way, with the right codes and so forth, to you in that silo, you're going to each take out a key and you're going to turn it. You're going to launch all those missiles and blow up and kill millions of people.
hmm.
That's who they were. That was the job
Right.
they had.
Yeah.
And so who was going to come forward and say, well, they probably have a psychological, they
Right.
had a bad childhood. So they are rock solid. So when they started coming forward with Bob Salas's help, starting in 94 and forward, they posed an enormous problem for the Department of Defense.
Sure.
Unlike a pilot that saw something, right? Even something profound, no big
How do you
deal.
discredit
This
that?
is a huge problem. So not only because how significant the event was, and
Hmm.
how obviously the gravitas of the men that were trying to get this truth out, but because you can't deal with it. In other words, there's only a few options to deal. There's only a few things you can do if you're the government of the United States. Some of them are just not available, usually. One, you kill them all. That's what would happen in the Soviet Union or China, Germany, whatever, the Nazis, whatever. You just kill them. That's it. They're gone. And if anybody they talk to, you kill them. They can't do that, right? Obviously, there are a lot of reasons. Secondly, you destroy their credibility by scandals and misinformation, lies, whatever. You just destroy them, make it so incredible that nobody's going to believe anything they say. They could do that. But no. Why? If you started an organized campaign to murder SAC base officers who were trying to talk about this phenomena and these shutdowns or ruin their reputation, in no time at all, you would have a revolt going on in the Strategic Air Command. All holy hell would break loose. And
Right.
so they knew they couldn't do it. So what was their third option? Their third option was nothing. Do nothing. Don't respond. Don't acknowledge them. Don't criticize them. Don't take press questions. Nothing.
Probably the
Ignore them. They
smartest.
don't exist.
Yeah.
And because the media, certainly back in the 90s still, was primarily on board with the truth embargo, at least to a certain degree. They were doing a lot, but there were certain lines they wouldn't cross. Because the DOD ignored them, the media were going, well, yeah, we can't, you won't even answer a question, so we can't get to the man, so we'll ignore them. And so basically the media did. Now, some articles have been written. In fact, I'm about to do a compilation on that, but it wasn't a lot. But there have been some articles. But again, 8, 9, 10, 15 articles is not enough to generate something very significant of this type. But there have been some articles. But they wrote their own books. They did their own documentaries. UFOs and Nukes and the documentary from that book. And Bob Salas wrote 3 books. And they did a press conference at the National Press Club 14 years ago. A lot of media were there. They listened. They gave them affidavits, the signed affidavits confirming their testimony. The media went back to their office and did nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Well, a couple of silly articles. That's it. And so it worked. So you have these men who are willing to take on the responsibility of servicing a nuclear war and have the deaths of millions of people on their conscience for the rest of their life and have to deal, and whatever else happens, being ignored. And when you're being ignored, that makes it a little easier for the ridicule, a little easier for fine skeptics and debunkers to kind of take a shot at you. They've had to endure that, well, for 34 years since they tried to come forward, but to one degree or another, all the way back 1967. Almost 50 years. And they're dying now. And one of my number one jobs is to get them in front of a hearing in Congress, a Senate hearing. And in service to that, Bob Salas came out from Ojai. He's the leader, or the one that has been most responsible for pulling these witnesses together. And he came out and working, he kind of worked with me, obviously, and we were able to get him in. It's what I'm talking about, 5 a.m. in the morning. And so Bob Salas, at 84 years old, stood in line 2 hours in 30-degree weather and then 4.5 hours inside the Rayburn building. And he and I got into that hearing together. Okay, fine. That was the start. But prior to that, I had already distributed 2 sets of those affidavits I referred to from 14 years ago to all of the appropriate members of the Oversight Committee. Now, I didn't talk to anybody at length because they were campaigning. It was before the election. But there's 2 sets of those affidavits in each one of those offices, and then one key member received an electronic version. And then, after the hearing was over, later that night, a fortuitous situation developed in which Bob Salas and I were able to have a 30-minute interview with one of the members of the committee.
Who?
I was able to alert this individual to those affidavits. So eventually this person is going to see those affidavits and might very well alert the other members to go look for those set of affidavits. And so there is a chance that we may have something going here. Now, this is the House, but still, it's significant. Believe me, if these men only were able to testify in front of a House hearing under oath, they would take it in a second. But in terms of the power of their testimony and it's how it could impact disclosure, it needs to be the Senate Intel. So that just happened, right? And I'm very happy about that. It just happened 2 days ago. And so 3 days ago. And so and this is news in the sense that the potential for getting the nuclear witnesses in front of a hearing, a committee under oath,
would be big.
Is improved dramatically, and now that's going to be my focus. I have 2 or 3 major tasks at the end of this year. One is somehow help the Senate decide to hold the damn major hearings that will end the truth embargo, and 2, get these nuclear witnesses in front of ideally the Senate Intel Committee under oath, or a House committee. Could be Armed Services, could be Oversight. Either one is fine. Those are the 2 major things that I'm looking to attempt to do between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, could you explain what the difference is between a House hearing and a Senate hearing, and why it's so much more important? Because the general public, most people don't understand how that works. Most people aren't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like a legal thing, but it's understood that the Senate is the
Okay.
upper house. All right,
Right.
and
A little more
they have very similar
gravitas.
committees. Well, yeah, I guess you could say gravitas. Senators serve for 6 years. All right, they represent an entire state,
Right.
and as a and is the case that their hearings and these individuals have a certain level of influence that you don't necessarily see in most of or many of the House members.
Okay.
So there's a little asymmetry here. Now, I'm sure the members of the House Armed Services Committee feel they're just as important as the members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. But it's also the case that the committees in the House might have 20, 30 members, or even 40, but the committees in the Senate might have 12 or 14.
Right.
And so each member of the committee in the Senate has more power, more voting power.
Okay.
So, and this is accepted. There's nothing shocking about this. And so if you're trying in terms of ending the truth embargo, it is in the interest of getting that done. If you've got 20 witnesses, you're going to get more bang for the buck if they testify in front of one of the major Senate committees, and the two clearly are Intel Committee and Armed Services. That doesn't mean that 20 witnesses of the type that I know are ready to testifying in front of the House Armed Services or House Intel Committee would not set up the president to be able to come forward in the right way and end the truth embargo. It could go that way. I mean, I think it would be good enough,
Yeah.
frankly. But so either will do. But right now, the House is doing their hearings. They're helping out. They're helping to advance the process, which is fantastic.
Sure.
But the kind of hearing I'm referring to, I don't see that shaping up. We don't have a lot of time left. Whereas the Senate Intel Committee, all of the legislation that's been passed, 4 tranches of legislation, the only 4 tranches of legislation on UAPs in the history of the country, all originated from the Senate Intel Committee. So you see where I'm going here?
Okay. All right. That helps. Well, as far as the hearing that just took place, when are they going to shoot for another hearing in Congress next year? Is this going to be like an annual thing? Are they going to try to do this every year? Because
Well,
it
what's going
barely
to
got, I mean, it was a year and a half almost since the last one. What was it, July or
Yeah, but it was
June?
55 years before that one, right? I mean, so we're
True,
picking up
right.
speed.
Yeah, good sign.
Uh,
But I'm just saying to
yeah.
keep this momentum going,
Sure.
hopefully they're going to push for this every single year.
Well, let me narrow that down. The committee, Burchett, May, Sloan, and so forth, have made clear they're going to hold more hearings.
Okay.
Now, they might be next year because we're kind of near the end of the year, but they won't be a year from now. They'll be early in the administration. Minimum, you can expect that. All right.
Okay.
So no problem there. And so we know that. But if we get this done and we get disclosure, say either in December or maybe the first 40, 50 days of the Trump administration, after disclosure, it's going to be nothing but hearings. It's
Right.
going to be raining hearings.
Yeah.
Every committee in both the House and Senate that feels they've got a dog in the fight is going to be holding hearings. It is going to be relentless. I mean, if you've got something to say, you're going to be able to get in front of some committee. It is going to be amazing. It's going to be hearings
Yeah.
stacked on top of hearings on top of hearings. It's going to be the most extraordinary legislative year in the history of democracy. It's hard to describe how intense it's going to be
Yeah,
post-disclosure.
because they're going to want answers for why this was kept, why this was, continued. It's going to be, people heads are going to
They want a
roll.
million. Sure. There's a million answers they want, and they also want a piece of the action. They want to help shape policy post-disclosure. They will whether they know it's coming or not, every member of Congress is going to be right in the middle of the most profound event in human history, the biggest political event in human history, and they're going to be right in the middle of it with the elected power to influence the history that is unfolding.
Right.
You could live 10,000 years and not get a chance like that. And so,
Right.
believe me, they're not going to sit in their hands. I mean, they are going to party, and it can't happen soon enough because I'm not getting any younger. But it's going to be fantastic, and the podcast army will double, right? I mean, the number of podcasts
Yeah.
addressing this
Oh,
issue
yeah.
will just double or triple, and that's great.
Explode.
Can't have too many podcasts, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, the Paradigm Research Group is now a 501c3 nonprofit, correct?
Yeah.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
exactly where does one go on your website to contribute a tax-deductible donation?
Thank you,
Is there,
sir. That's very kind of you. I take full responsibility for the fact that I haven't got it set up yet.
okay.
Because it's been a
I'm
tough
sorry.
couple, and that's a
sorry.
mistake. Believe me, no, it's okay. What I have to do is Paradigm Research Group now has got to change its agenda. It's got to change its
Right.
approach, and I have to change the website. That's not a big deal. So I have to kind of rejigger the website. I got to put up a board. I got to do all this kind of stuff, which I got to do. I swear to God, I got to do it. And in addition, I have to set up a robust donation module. Now, I have set the module up, got that done. I just need to get the site figured, plug the module in, and then start promoting the hell out of it. So soon, if you go to Paradigm Research Group, you will see the new site, and you will also see where people can donate. They can donate tax-deductible contributions. Technically, you could do that now. There's an address up there. You could send a check, whatever. But there isn't a donation section there. But if anybody sends a check to New Paradigm Research Group, that's the name on the check, not my name, but that means it goes into the nonprofit account. But I'm not soliciting them. I'm trying to get my job done first. And then as soon as I can raise about $25,000, I've got a couple of pretty cool projects that I'll be able to launch and get into very fast. So
because I tried to go on there and see if I could figure it out, and I don't know if I looked, but you haven't finished it yet. Okay.
I took it down. I took the contribution section down.
Oh, okay.
Some time ago. I didn't want people contributing before I was a nonprofit where they didn't get a tax deduction, but then the people later. So I did, but I really wasn't supposed to take this long. I mean, I expected to have this done a couple months ago, but it's been a wild and crazy time, as I'm sure you know.
Doing a lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on these days. But when you do, I'll include a direct link in the show notes. But I'm going to ask all podcasters, investigators, researchers, and anyone out there passionate about the topic to just go right now to Stephen's site and make a donation. Just don't think about it. Just do it.
Again, you can't donate on the site, but you could send something.
Right.
But let's broaden the promo here. Let me do what I always do. Right. ParadigmResearchGroup.org. We know about that. Now, people need to start checking out the NewParadigmInstitute.org. NewParadigmInstitute.org. NPI.
Okay.
All right. This has been in the making for many years, but it finally got pretty good funding. It is led by Danny Sheehan. It is a very substantial entity. It is right in the middle of the thick of things. It helped sponsor an event this week, but it is going to be the leading activist, I think, group on this issue in the post-disclosure world. And so you go to the site and just look at it. You could see it is several levels above in terms of robustness what Paradigm Research is. But it's big. I'm small, but about small, you're more nimble and you can change direction. So I have my own assets there. So New Paradigm Institute. Then you've got the Soul Foundation, set up by Gary Nolan, based out of Stanford University. Soul Foundation is a scientific think tank set up. Why? To address the scientific implications and aspects of the post-disclosure world. Right. Now, I know they're looking for millions. But I'm sure they will accept any donation. I think they have that on their site. And then you have another group that was in town this week, the UAP Disclosure Fund. Check that out. It's got a huge group of very important people involved. It's based out of San Francisco. It's a 501c3 organization, which means you get tax deductions for donating to it, but it's not a think tank. It is a political entity that's going to use that money to affect political policy. That was created for the post-disclosure world. Okay, you see what's going on here? MUFON is obviously growing. It is a nonprofit. People can donate to that. Of course, it's been around for 69 years, and they're engaging. They've had a lobbying firm working for them. They've got a full media program run by Ron James. So yeah, let's donate there. These are the citizen organizations, by and large, that are been working at this for a long time. There are many, many other organizations, of course. All of them need a little bit of money without question. And there are still conferences that you can support, but less so. This issue is getting intense. The public is demanding more, and so it's difficult to just put on a small conference and everybody's kind of, working for free and it's no big deal. That's not the way it is now. Right. It's got to be at a fairly substantial venue. You've got to have substantial speakers you've got to pay. And so there's going to be fewer conferences, but bigger and more robust. That's just the way of things until after disclosure. Anything is possible. I mean, you're going to have so much money available, I think, to this issue. It's going to be astounding because very wealthy people who donate love to donate, particularly when there is a clear, defined result, and particularly if it's cool. Okay, right. And so they're there. America, the amount of money that's donated for tax deduction and to service causes is staggering, staggering. Wow. But so how do you get it? Well, all I can say is this: of all the hundreds and hundreds of issues that have gotten hundreds and billions billions collectively over the years, the ET activist movement is the least funded of all. Nothing is this less funded. Yeah. Why? Truth embargo, the ridicule, the stigma, the government's policy. One of the reasons that the truth embargo has lasted is that the way they conducted it made it very difficult for anybody to donate to it, particularly people of substantial wealth, because they can donate to a whole lot of things. Why do they want to donate to this issue and have to deal with all the silliness? Have to deal with all the controversy and people calling them stupid names and whatever, because of course it's nuts. And so the stigmatizing of this issue was 50% about not just making it hard to do the work, but making it much more difficult to raise money. It's astounding how much has been accomplished with so little. If the big shots ever start putting money in this, with the moment we're going to get disclosure, I think, soon. And so, but if they had started putting big money into this state 15 years ago, we'd be long into the post-disclosure world. Sure. But I don't want to piss them off, because once we get into the post-disclosure world, the need for money and resources to engage that world and address the issues, a whole host of potential projects and possibilities is limitless. Oh yeah, and that's going to take a lot of money, and so we need them, and I'm sure they're going to step up, and you're going to see billions of dollars pouring into what we'll call ET related, not ET related, but what's the word I'll be looking for? I guess it's not really. I need to find a word for this. Post-disclosure projects, post-disclosure developments. In other words, anything that's being created and done that's factoring in the new paradigm that we're not alone in the universe, and we have engagement from ETs right now. So anything that's trying to factor that into something else, whatever it is, they're going to get money. People are going to be happy to fund, and things are going to get pretty exciting. And I'm looking forward to that, I assure you.
Yeah, I'm sure more and more scientists will, get on board too. Well, they'll have to. I mean, it makes you wonder. I mean, they've got to know. I mean, because that was the other thing I wanted to talk about is different kinds of evidence. I know there's scientific evidence, there's historical evidence, but there's also anecdotal evidence that they just blow off from people, and I don't understand that. I mean, we live in the real world. People's testimony, when there's that many different accounts over time, there's something going on. They've got to know in the back of their mind that there's something going on and that we really
Not the
should.
back of their mind. Not the
The
back of their
scientists.
mind. I can assure you that thousands and thousands of
Right.
scientists, either working in the academic arena or the uh, civilian world, have been aware for decades that this phenomena was real and not human.
You haven't.
Thousands of them. Okay, so again, so what? What then? Okay, so they know. Well, it's simple.
Yeah.
You're a scientist. You live and die on the basis of your credentials and peer review
Right.
and your credibility.
I know.
And you know the government's not going to relent on this, and it's constantly being stigmatized. Are you going to raise your hand in a faculty meeting or at some
True.
scientific gathering and say, I've been reading some books and I'm pretty sure that phenomenon is extraterrestrial? No, you are not.
Right.
And they didn't. But later we will learn, and a lot of them will come forward and say, so I always knew. I knew when I was 29.
Yeah.
I've known for 40 or whatever, but I wasn't prepared to sacrifice my career and the welfare of my family on the altar of the truth embargo. And
Sure.
I'm not gonna throw any shade at them. I get it.
Yeah. Well, there will be those who do throw it at them because they're, they
Uh,
can,
well,
because they're going to
if we get
believe that
it,
they contributed
good.
you- to the stigma.
Oh, well, I'm gonna do my best to convince people don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Don't do that. Nobody. The only thing worse than a bad loser is a bad loser is a bad winner. I don't know if you're a tennis player, but I used to do that. I used to play people. I was pretty good. So I'd
Yeah.
play somebody, beat the hell out of them, and they get all mad and
Racquetball.
pissy, right? Yeah, they're okay, good racquetball. I tried
Racquetball.
to play that. I kept crashing into the wall. The point is that they're really mad and busy and they're kicking a racket, and so they're a bad loser. But I'm cool. I get it, man. You lost. You're pissed. I don't
Yeah.
blame you. It's all right, no problem. But when I play somebody and they beat me and they win, and they're acting like a jackass afterwards. In other words, bad winner. Oh, that
Right.
is very irritating.
Yeah.
And so nobody likes a bad winner, I assure you. And so if we are going to go down that road, we're going to regret it. Uh, when the truth embargo ends, everybody should be thinking forward. They should be pulling out all the grace they've got in them, whatever they got.
I agree.
They need to be understanding.
It's not going to
They
happen
need to
though.
be fair. They get out of the retribution. I told you so stuff. Nobody wants
Yeah.
to hear it. I assure you. Don't want to hear it. Lawsuits, threats, all that kind of crap. I get it. Don't do that. Now, it's still
Right.
going to happen,
It's
but
going to
to the
happen.
extent it's not part of what I would call the leadership and the podcast army. Obviously, I'll be calling on the podcast army to tell the
Graciously.
troops to like
Right.
build people. Okay, this will go a lot better if you uh, are a really good winner.
Yeah.
And
Welcome
don't
them
go
into
around
the
all your
fold.
friends.
Right.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
This is very important. There have been other
I
instances of
agree.
this in history, and this will be one of the larger ones. But overall, the crimes, I guess you could say, committed by governments, obviously, U.S. government particularly, are not not in the league of the crimes that they have done. There are other things that they have done that are far worse than this.
Sure.
And so let's keep things in proportion.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
was
there
going
are
to say
far
during
worse things the
wartime,
U.S.
as
has
far as
done than
things.
this truth embargo.
Right.
And I know a lot of people that still haven't gotten over those, and I kind of get it. But those crimes are sort of in the past. In other words, they happen, they're done. And so you want to be pissed about it. It's okay. It's not going to really affect the present much. But this is not in the past. This is happening now, and it's huge. And so going back is going to directly interfere with what needs to happen in the moment. So that's a different matter. And again, the crimes associated with the truth embargo do not rise to the level of the kinds of crimes our country and other countries have committed. And
Right.
so let's be proportional here. Let's be reasonable.
Yeah. I think it's definitely the best attitude is to, welcome them in, not don't rub it in. Have you seen UFO Twitter? It's
Yeah, I get it. No, that's all right. I understand. It's all right.
Yeah.
I can't compel. I can only impel.
Right.
But I've also seen some wisdom there too. So it's easy to kind of be pissy on Twitter, but we haven't got disclosure yet. Now it's kind of fun in a way. It's like practice, but when disclosure comes, everybody's going to get serious, and then they'll have to decide how they want to deal with it. But I think they will give it serious consideration. It won't be casual. And what you'll find is those people that are really kind of being jackasses post disclosure, they're getting a lot of pushback. You know, a lot of people saying, "What's your problem? Right? Why are you doing this?"
Right.
Okay, we have we're entering a phase where we may eventually be interacting with other galactic civilizations and may have starships. I mean, so why are you want to be pissing backward into the wind?
Exactly.
There is a certain self-regulating aspect to social media. I'm aware of it.
Now, during the yeah, let's go back to the hearing again. I didn't ask, or I think I asked, and we moved on from it. What stuck out to you most in that hearing? What was the one thing, the one takeaway? And it could be one of the testimony from any of the different members or eyewitnesses that were there, or it could be
Mm.
something that one of the congressmen brought up. But what was your biggest takeaway? Take your time and think about it for a minute.
The testimony, it wasn't the testimony,
Okay.
right? Believe it or not. The cumulative, the effect of the multiple joint testimonies and the overlap, that was very powerful and that was important. So I guess you could call that a takeaway.
Okay.
This was a different kind of hearing, powerful in its own way. That's a takeaway. But we didn't have the kind of Grush moment, right? The non-human tech,
Right.
non-human bodies, which came up this time, but it came up that time for the first time in a hearing in the history of the country as a big deal.
Right.
So a couple of things. One, and again, and it's important because this time around, way more venues live stream this, and I think in almost every case, these venues then archive the live stream. So I'm gonna find out all of those. So there is plenty of places you can go, but it'll be helpful if we identify them to watch the whole thing with better audio, right? And
Yeah.
so eventually, I don't know, the number of people that eventually watch this hearing is going to be, I think, in the millions, and that's important. One of the reasons the New York Times article of December 16 of 2017 was so incredibly important is because they put the gun camera clips up on the website. I would imagine that
Right.
those gun camera clips have had 1 billion, 2 billion views since then, easily. All right, that's big,
Quite a
right?
few.
Just some
Yeah.
videos. Okay, so um, we were all sat down. They took down the stadium seating, which was great because you were up and everybody had a good view and you could be seen. But they wanted more people to be able to get in. So God bless them. They took the stadium seating out and they put in nothing but chairs. So they got another 15, 20 people in. So we're all down low, but that's okay. And so, but it's full. It's packed. All right, left to
Oh,
right, all the way. You've got a fairly sizable uh, 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 panel up there. I mean, or a panel. Potentially, there could be as many as like I think 25 or 30, and that's kind of impressive. We had 8 witnesses, a bunch of staff, so it's robust. It's looking good. And then it's time for the witnesses to come in. And I forget how this went down with Grush. I think probably similar, but this was different atmosphere. And we had more witnesses. So when these 4 gentlemen came in, they come in from the side door on the right side and the back, and they come in and then they make a right turn to go and sit at the tables. And as they are making that right turn, the entire audience starts applauding.
yeah.
That didn't happen with Crush.
Hmm.
They're applauding. Okay. And that applause is going out on all of that video feed. And that applause is going to be seen hundreds, I think millions of times over the next years. And you may think that's not a big deal, but actually it is. Okay. It is a big deal. And every potential witness out there that sees that video and sees those people applauding these heroes as they stepped up to take the oath is going to have a significant, how would you say, reason why they should come forward too.
Right.
And all of that ensures the doom of the truth embargo.
Yeah. It's hard to expect anyone to come forward with their careers, their lives, their families on the line. It's hard, but it's needed, you know.
But less true now. I mean, it's easier to come forward than ever.
Right.
Still, there's concerns, but it's obviously getting better all the time. The bar for coming forward is getting lower and lower. But every individual situation is different. But the potential number of witnesses continues to grow, and that's another reason why the Senate needs to get the hearing done, and why the Department of Defense needs to give up. I mean, they're embarrassing themselves. I mean, it pains me when I see the Department of Defense make a complete ass of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we don't need that. They control the nukes and they defend the country against some pretty powerful enemies. So if they're making an ass of themselves, this is not confidence building.
Yeah,
It's like if they dressed up in Halloween costumes and ran around the halls just to have fun, but not on Halloween. I mean, you'd be going, wait a minute, you're the Department of Defense. What's going on there?
all right.
It's like that. And I don't want to go back to the cases when they've done this, but they need to stop.
So have they made an official statement regarding that Immaculate Constellation? Have they said anything officially, made any official statement with regard to that?
I'm still catching up. I think I saw something to the effect that somebody from the DoD said there's no there. I
Yeah.
don't know yet. I imagine they will. They may already have. I'll catch up, but they're not. There's no way they're going to come forward and acknowledge it. Immaculate.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. They should. They need to. It would be good, but they're not going to do it.
No. No, there's no way. They can't because it's still
Not yet.
classified regardless.
No. The fact that it's classified is not the point. No. I mean, they can do it. There's a lot of ways they could do it. They could go to the president and say, we want to do it. The point is that to do that is to literally put a rocket underneath the disclosure movement.
Sure.
And lock it down pretty quickly. And they're just not ready yet. They can't. I think some of them are thinking if we can just hold off, I'm going to retire. I'm going to move to Boca Raton. Life's going to be good. And all my, the people left behind are going to have to answer all these questions. And so let's just hang on until I retire. I mean, there's a lot of people I know that are thinking exactly that way. I don't want to be on board when 500,000 press starts turning up at every hearing with 1,000 questions that nobody wants to answer. I don't want to be on board.
Right.
But I'm sorry about that, folks. You just go ahead and retire early, whatever you got to do. But this is going to be over soon. And so be part of it. To the extent that you support the end of the truth embargo, it will bode well for you. It will be a good thing. It will end up working out well for you. Maybe not initially, you may be a little worried, but ultimately you'll be on the right side of history. And that's where you want to be.
Now, you said the 19th. Is that when you said Gillibrand's going to... Okay. Yeah, that's pretty quick.
Well, I mean, that's what has been said. She could change her mind at any time. Okay. But the 19th is technically on a calendar.
Okay. All right, Stephen. Is there anything else that I didn't cover that
we've covered a lot?
Discuss? I'm sorry?
No, I've done well. I appreciate it, Bill. It's again, I've done the promos. I can't. Did any of the promos? Oh, I forgot one.
Yes.
A year ago, Hollywood publicist Dan Harari and I co-founded the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. Guess what? 501c3. We accept donations. Got a GoFundMe page, got a donate button on the website. It is a unique organization, only one of its kind. It is a 501c profit networking organization.
Yeah, because you
can... sole purpose.
I was going to say, you can donate without being a member. You can still donate to it.
Of course. It's anybody can donate.
Right.
But we have 180 members divided into two groups, Hollywood and UAP. And the whole reason for this is so that people that are willing to do it are putting their bio and name up on that site, basically saying, I'm into this issue. You want to do business? You want to make a doc? Want to make a film? Want to do some research? Or if you're the UAP side, I know a lot. Are you a producer? Are you a director? You got some funding? You want to make a project on this? Here I am. And it's happening. So we're helping the UAP people, because not everybody knows everybody else, kind of find each other and network. We're helping the Hollywood people kind of find each other. Hey, you're into this too? I had no idea. And then we're helping the Hollywood and the UAP people find each other, but we're also helping everybody else find them.
Right.
So if you're not a member of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, but you want to do a doc, so you go there and you go down in the Hollywood section and you're looking at people that are pretty talented. They're into the issue. And so you want to contact them. Now, if you're a member of the Hollywood Alliance, we will give you the contact information. Bingo.
Right.
If you're not a member, but you want to contact somebody, then we will approach them and get permission. And if they get permission, we will then give the outside non-member the contact info.
Yeah,
and it's already making, yeah. So
yeah,
this is important.
They have the influence, and they're the ones putting the films out there. They're the ones, the stars that people look up to. They can influence people and get them interested in this topic who are, like Taylor Swift, for instance, if she said,
yeah, we'd love to have her as a member.
Yeah, I was going to say, if she said tomorrow that, I believe in UFOs, you guys would be flooded, with people with
well, yeah, if they say, look, we've approached many of the pretty high level A and B list stars who have voiced interest in this issue, but it's hard to get to them. They are protected by their agents and managers, and rightly so. But we'll work out. We've got one Oscar winner in our organization.
Ones that have come forward and said that they're interested in the topic, or they believe in the phenomenon.
Yeah, there are people that have publicly talked about it. Oh yeah,
those are the ones you target. Okay,
many.
Yeah,
but and I'm talking high level people, pretty famous people.
Right.
And so obviously we would love to have them, and we're working on it. But it is a pretty righteous organization, and but we have very little funding. Dan and I initiated it out of our own pocket, and that wasn't easy. So there's a whole lot of things we could do. So if somebody drops $100,000 on us, and believe me, there's so many people walking around Hollywood with $100,000, it's not even funny. Then boy, we could really start doing some things. We're the only organization of its type in the world. The only thing that's similar and far bigger than us, I mean, very, very substantial, high end, is an entity called the the Environmental Media Association, EMA.
Okay.
And that was launched by some very high-level people in Hollywood, not the least of which was Norman Lear and his wife, way back, 1994, I think, to network the environmental activist movement with all of the film content people. So the content and messaging being done would be better and more accurate and more effective. Because the people that were founding it were like major A-list people, they started off with $1 million fundraising dinner, and other top people in town came, and they're still around and very substantial. You got a lot of top people in there, and so that is the closest thing that I'm aware of to us. But it's got so much more, and it's more robust. So they're in no way on the same level. But networking, they do more than just networking. But the idea of networking two important segments of our society together is essentially common to the EMA and HDA.
All right, Stephen. Well, it's going on 2 hours. It's almost 9 o'clock. So
really, my God. All right, Bill. Look, appreciate. Welcome to the party. You're now part of my army. Look, if you need anything from me, just ask. If you end up with a guest, drop it at the last minute. This is what I do. I can get ready in 5 minutes. So good luck.
Appreciate it.
I'll look forward to talking to you again.
All right. It was a pleasure, Stephen.
All righty.
All right. Good night.
Take care.